My name is Gaia Athena, and in this video I'm bringing you my August 2019 reading summary. In this video I will tell you about my reading in August. In August I read 14 books, and that is just as many as I read in June and April, but less than I read in the other months of the year. The pie chart shows pretty much the same thing. In August I read 4,241 pages. This is pretty similar to most of the other months, a little bit on the lower end, but in August I read a lot of library loans, so I didn't read my usual graphic novels and manga, which normally give a little bit more pages versus the time I spend on them, sort of thing. Yeah, the pie chart shows pretty much that too. In August I read 6 books for children, 6 books for young adults, and 2 books for adults. This is a little bit of a change from June and July, in which I read many more books for adults. But like I said, I had library loans, and usually from the library I borrow mostly children's and young adult books rather than books for adults. So anyway, it just shows that reading differs month per month. In August I didn't reread any books. All of the books I read were new to me. Most of the books that I read were my library loans, and then I read 1 book of my own. Then we get to the genres that I read in August. I read 3 fantasy books, non-science fiction books, 6 contemporary fiction books, no rom-coms, no historical fiction, no literature, 1 detective and mystery, 3 thrillers, no horror, no paranormal, 2 biographies and memoirs, 1 information book, and no Disney and no art. This graph shows the genres I read per month, but then for all the months so far this year. So it's basically the previous graph, but then also those for all the other months. If you've watched any more reading summaries of mine, you'll have seen this graph before, but now it's updated with August. Yeah. The shortest books I read this month were Nikki op Turnkamp by Simone Kortsmit, 184 pages. Livestream by Buddy Tegenbosch, 190 pages. The Chocolate Factory Ghost by David O'Connell, 200 pages. Afgang by H.N. Kowit, 206 pages. Ik moet nog even kijken of ik kan by Lisbeth Smith, 207 pages. And Chaos met Autisme by Sigrid Landman, 208 pages. The longest books I read this month were Kraai en Koninkrijk by Leigh Bardugo, or Crooked Kingdom, 622 pages. List en Leugens, or Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, 542 pages. The Astounding Broccoli Boy by Frank Cottrell Boyce, 394 pages. And lastly, How It Feels to Float by Helena Fox, 379 pages. My favorite reads of the month, and of those I have 3. The first one is How It Feels to Float by Helena Fox. I really enjoyed this young adult contemporary fiction book that deals with mental health, and it also has some LGBT representation. It spoke to me on a personal level. I really related to some parts of this book. Then we have Oog om Oog by Buddy Tegenbosch. This was a very good read. Also a young adult contemporary, but now by a Dutch author. It has themes of mental health. It's about a first year student. I really liked the writing, the characters, also the location. Yeah. And lastly we have Chaos met Autisme by Sigrid Landman. This is an autism memoir, and I really enjoyed it. Sigrid is a mother. She is autistic, and she has an autistic daughter, and she also has an autistic husband. And I found this book really interesting. Then we get to my list of pretty enjoyable, and to be honest that was most of the books this month. So first off we have Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, or List en Leugens and Kraai en Koninkrijk. I quite enjoyed reading this duology. I didn't enjoy it as much as a lot of other people on BookTube, but I did like it, and I'm glad I read it, and I really loved the characters. The characters and the plot twists were, in my opinion, the best parts of the book. Yeah, so I enjoyed reading these 2 books. Then we have Grimroddels, Turntoppers Book 3, and Nikki op Turnkamp, Turntoppers Book 1, both by Simone Kortsmit. I liked Grimroddels a bit more than Nikki op Turnkamp, which is why I've put them in this order, but both of the reads were pretty enjoyable. And I hope to find book 2 at some point at the library. I enjoyed these. Then we have Livestream by Boddy Tegenbosch and Test by Mia Mouse. These were both Dutch YA thrillers, and I liked both of them. I had a couple issues with both as well, so they're not favorites of the month, but they were quite good. Then we have The Astounding Broccoli Boy by Frank Cottrell Boyce, and yeah, I enjoyed that book. It was funny and kind of whimsical, and yeah, I liked it. Then we have The Chocolate Factory Ghost by David O'Connell, which is the Dundoodle Mysteries book 1. I enjoyed this read. It was kind of a mystery adventure kind of story. De Magische Apotheek book 1, Er hangt een geheim in de lucht by Anna Ruhe. It took me a little bit of time to get into this book, but once I got into it, it was really interesting. And I enjoyed reading this book. And lastly, Ik moet nog even kijken of ik kan by Lisbeth Smith. I enjoyed reading this sort of memoir information book about introverts. It was a nice read. It was easy to read, but I didn't get much out of it for myself on a personal level, but I did like it. Then the books that I found somewhat enjoyable this month, and that was just one of them, and that was Afgang, The Loserlijst book 3 by H.N. Cowitt, or in English, Jinx of the Loser List book 3. This was an alright read. It was fun at the time, but looking back on my month, this was the book that I liked the least out of all of those that I've read. But I still liked reading it alright, so that's why I've put it on the somewhat enjoyable. Least favourites of the month, that was none. I enjoyed reading all of my books to some extent, so there wasn't any book this month that I really disliked, which is good. This brings us to the end of my August 2019 reading summary. I didn't read lots of books this month in comparison to some other months, but I did enjoy most of the books I read. I read 3 books that were really good. I read a lot of books that I found pretty enjoyable. So overall I would say it was a nice reading month, pretty good reading month. I did feel a bit of pressure throughout the month to finish my library loans in time, and I ended up having to hand some of them in without having read them, but that's okay. There were a few days this month where I just didn't read much because I had been reading a lot and didn't want to read anymore, if that makes sense. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!